Hello, and welcome to another emergency episode of the Whip 12 podcast. Don't be alarmed, we're not going to talk about politics, but there is news that we need to discuss. And here with me today is the eminent, blessed be our own Olli, to talk about yesterday's Adepticon reveals.
Hey,
Woo! If I
yeah,
had some
so
sound effects, I'd add a thing in here, but
yeah,
that's it.
if you had like a DJ deck or something.
Yeah, like some
Um,
kind of sting.
yeah,
Pow! News!
yeah. Yeah, so lots of news coming out last night, the seminar. So I'm in the UK, so I watched it from sort of midnight to 1 a.m., which wasn't too uncivilized. Lots of new reveals, so I wanted to go through them today. Just as a disclaimer to everyone listening, as of this recording, the official YouTube video hasn't been released yet, so I am on a live stream of the seminar itself.
Yeah, I'm sure one or two listeners got to catch that. I mean, it did feature, we did get to watch them actually talking and all the kind of
Yeah.
bump around that. As much as it's not the high quality video that you would see on YouTube, it had all the relevant information, we hope.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, I've seen all this. Because I've been playtesting some things, like obviously I get to talk about some that has now been officially announced, so it's out there in the world, people know about it. And I I wanted to get this episode done quite partly because I'm excited, but also partly I have some perspectives coming out and I think it's going to be really cool, so I just wanted to go. What are your
Cool.
initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think long-time listeners will know I'm an operations main player. So the fact that new stuff is coming for them is, of course, very, very good for me. And I think a lot of the other stuff is also of interest. I guess we'll get into each individual bit as it goes along. But before we came on air to record, we were talking about the things that they're doing that are not model focused, and that, I think that's good. It's disappointing not to get like all new things all the time and know everything about all the models. I know everyone's always so hungry for that information, but I think we can all agree that we're also hungry in a sense for the game to grow and the business to succeed, and these other things that they're doing are obviously going to help that.
Yeah, I entirely agree. I think when Corvus Belli moved their website, didn't they? Because I can't remember what the URL was, but it's now Infinite Universe or something like that.
Yeah.
So they've obviously, at some point, they decided, oh, we're going to expand this thing. It's not just the game, it's novels, and we've had the mangas. We had I remember Betrayal and Outrage. So
Yeah.
I think this was always on the cards, and I think as maybe veteran or hungrier fans are like, no, just give us the models, give us the models. But actually, I mean, the number one question or number one comment is always okay, where's all the lore, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
Here it is. You've got. I think
here,
I can't.
Here it is. Yeah, it's on the way.
Yeah. Yes, we've got 6 novels coming. I think. I might have miscounted 5. But there are lots and lots of new novels coming. There's an audiobook coming, and I think that's all really helpful to sort of raise awareness of Infinity, like in the public conscious a little bit.
Yeah.
I hate. We all raise the spectre of Games Workshop, I guess. Well, it's not spectre; it's still very much alive. And yeah. I think the reason
the shadow under which we play.
Yeah, the shadow. But the reason Games Workshop partly does so well is because it is in the public consciousness, right? People kind of know, even if they don't play the game, they know about it. And I think Infinity doing more to raise awareness of like the game outside of the game is a good thing. I'm not saying for 1 second it's going to probably be as popular as Games Workshop. Well, maybe one day, but not now. But what I am saying is that I think the more that people understand what Infinity is about, the more players we're going to get, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, particularly with novels, it's just another way to get people into the hobby. You know, another route where someone who might not have a necessarily a background in wargaming, or they do, but they've never really like connected with the Infinity Universe, they might see a novel and think, well, that's actually an easier way for me to get in. I don't have to buy a load of models up front. I don't have to buy a massive lore book up front and trawl that. I can just have an enjoyable read of a novel, hopefully. And if that like twigs my interest, if that piques my interest rather, then that's the way I can get in. You know, it's that thing of diversifying. Of course, they've had the TV show, which perhaps has
Yeah.
not quite gone to plan, but it's just another avenue to grow that business. Yeah, obviously it brings money in its own right, but I guess the underlying notion is we want more people to play this game, buy these products, and those extra avenues in are really vital, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I guess, kind of less cynically, like just to enjoy this universe. This is what Infinity is about. Here's some cool stuff happening. Let's write it down.
Yeah,
I think
true.
important. And I spend my entire life online on all the Discords and things. Important to remember that it probably represents already quite invested people. There are going to be far less invested players that probably don't go on the Discords. They might read the book or read one of the mangas and think, oh, that scene was really cool. Let me just pick up that one model. You know, there's a scene with like a Guida in one of the mangas, and I've had people say, that's really cool. What tag is that? You know, and then they go out and they start collecting Yujing, or even just get the one model and just paint it up. I think there are lots of
Yeah.
ways to enjoy this hobby. And I think, you certainly in my time on IGL running events, you know, I need to remind myself it is just one way of enjoying this hobby, and there are lots of others. And I think the audiobooks are proof positive that CB realizes that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think audiobooks, I'm not a listener to audiobooks myself, but I know a lot of people do when they're doing their hobby, painting, building, all that kind of thing. And again, having a way in for somebody who, you know, maybe they've got their 40K or they've got whatever they have at home and they like to sit of an evening and listen to a story. Again, they can just dip a toe into the Infinity Universe and get a sense of what it's about while they're
Yeah.
doing something else, and you know, give them another way to engage with it,
Yeah.
which is really good.
So definitely very positive. Then we had a really exciting announcement, I think, from Warlord that Human Sphere is going to be massively expanded as part of the Infinity Universe. Lots and lots of new lore. A big project. It will probably take a long time, but again, you know, thinking about new players, this goes right back to one of the first questions. Where can I read about the units? Where can I read about what everything does? Human Sphere's been great for that, but I would argue maybe a little bit lacking. So to see expansion there, I'm really positive about as well. As with you as well, when I'm play testing, I always go back to Human Sphere and other sources of lore, and I'll read things about the units, and I'll think, okay, this is what it's supposed to do. How can I translate that to the tabletop?
Yeah, I've spent tons of time on Human Sphere, and yeah, it's a really good resource. But you're right, there are some gaps, and you know, if they can get backing, as Jet, shout out to Jet, big fans here from Book 12. I think if they can get that hooked in directly into the business in some sense, so that when lore comes out, new lore, you know, you can get it on Human Sphere in something like an orderly amount of time, in something like
Yeah.
a complete sense, instead of the sort of dribs and drabs. You know, it's the Human Sphere. Big shout out to the Human Sphere guys, because they've done an amazing job to get it where it is.
Yeah,
And
voluntarily.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to get to. They've done it
Yeah,
completely voluntarily. So of course there are going to be gaps. Of course it's going to be, you know, something they do in their free time when they've got a bit of time for it. But it is probably the most present, the most visible lore resource that is around. And so it's good that CB are kind of engaging with that and trying to make it into something more than what it is.
yeah, I completely agree. Great resource. You know, let's just. I guess one of the themes of this seminar was let's expand, you know, the Infinity Universe so that there are just more resources. and that's really important. And I was thinking as I was watching, I think it's easy to be a bit cynical and say, where are my pewter models or whatever they're made out of now, tin, I don't know. But actually this kind of is really important bread and butter stuff. So yeah,
very much so.
Then after that, we had a sort of flurry of extra announcements about partners and things that have been worked on. So I think Warsenal came up and talked about new terrain. We love, the Warsenal stuff. I think they're beginning to sell more pre-painted stuff, which is really, really exciting. Micro Art Studio came up and discussed a new project. I think they were hesitant to say what it was until the new box came out. So there weren't too many details. I'm guessing it's going to be, Infinity peripherals, terrain, something like that. Maybe command panels. And then we had Army Painter. So we've seen the paint sets in the past. I think the promise of more paint sets is cool. Lots, I've enjoyed them. And finally, a bit of a strange announcement with a team up with My Mini Factory, which is essentially devoted to 3D printing. I don't know what this is going to be. They didn't say what it was going to be. If I had to place a bet, I would say, maybe STLs for like repeaters and crazy koalas and stuff. But I actually don't know. I have no idea what's going on there.
That one was really surprising. The other ones make sense. They already have pre-existing relationships with Warsenal and Mass and with the Army Painter. But yeah, My Mini Factory appears on the surface, at least, to be something of a, it's sort of in opposition, in a sense, to a manufacturing business like Corvus Belli.
Yeah.
The ultimate destination of 3D printing is it's already been reached, doesn't it? You just print off the models. You don't even need to buy anything.
Right.
And when the rules for Corvus Belli are free, it's like what are they gaining from this? So I'm really intrigued to find out what they must obviously have a plan. They know what they're doing, but I'm really intrigued to find out what it is, because I think it's so fascinating, and I think quite bold move, really, because of course it's when you look at someone like Games Workshop or other businesses, they look upon 3D printing as a threat, and that's an obvious and I would say correct way to look at it. But if Corvus Belli have thought about a way in which they can engage with that world that is productive for them, then more power to them. Like if that's the direction they can go in a good way, that's I'm willing to see what happens there.
Yeah, so am I. I think I agree with you. I think the easiest take is printing as a threat to the business. I'm not I'm not necessarily sure that's kind of 100% correct, but it's definitely at least partially correct. And I think if CB can find an avenue where 3D printing is involved and it's actually part of the business, that could be really, really exciting. I think what you maybe want to do is kind of retain control of your like core property, like the models and stuff. Maybe allow people to 3D print the annoying other bits that you don't get in the boxes. That's my guess. So that's why I said, repeaters, koalas, mines, peripherals, stuff like that. I have no idea. They did not mention anything in the seminar, so it's kind of left a lot of question marks around that.
Yeah, interesting to see. Well, I guess it will become apparent in time.
It will. So that was the start of it. Then I can't remember if Warcrow came after or we went straight into the models. Forgive me, by the time we finished. But okay. Nevertheless, so we got some model reveals and a couple more exciting things that I'll talk about, towards the end of this podcast. So we are going to leave the best till last. So you're going to have to hang on. So do you want to talk a little bit about sculpt and things like that and what's left an impression on you? I mean, we're kind of working off blurry pictures, but you've got some of the details and things. So
yeah, I what I like, one thing I really like about Corvus Belli, I guess it's normal for a lot of miniature businesses, but is the way in which they just keep a steady drip feed of stuff that's not necessarily the big splashy stuff. They do that, of course, but the first thing that came up was Riot Girl resculpts, which I'm not a Pecunian player. That doesn't overly interest me as a faction, but those models were quite old. They didn't need a refresh. Like they are still fairly decent, I think. But to get new ones, they look pretty cool. It's a cool way actually of kind of having said I'm not interested in Bakunin, you see a new model and you're like, oh, that new model is quite cool actually. I didn't really get on board when the action pack dropped or the battle pack dropped. And now a year's gone by or 2 years have gone by, and oh, actually, that's pretty cool. Maybe I do want to get into that. And the Riot Girls have done that for me. I was always a little bit, shall we say, skeptical about the Riot Girl sculpts, the sort of nipple covers and one or two other bits. I was like, okay. But I kind of, in the context of Riot Girls specifically, and the kind of culture, the actual real world culture of like the Riot Girl kind of like thing they're tapping into.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of okay. I'm okay with it. Like it makes sense in that context.
I agree.
And so they're cool. They're cool models. I like them. There's not a Spitfire one as far as we can see at the moment, which is a shame because that's a quite popular profile as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But the important missile launcher is there, and of course there's a couple of others that will happily proxy for a Spitfire, so it's no big deal. And they look really cool, and they look really nicely painted as well. So they're cool.
Yeah, I really like the drip feed of like new stuff from older factions that have been reworked. They've had the ton. Bakunin, obviously, when did it get reworked? Sort of end of N4, mid N. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But it's been
at least a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the sculpts. I like the sculpts, but they were a little bit dated, and I think it's cool to just get new sculpts for existing factions. It keeps the hope alive for a lot of people, and yeah, I enjoy that. I've just realised I've forgotten some things, so I'm going to forward like one or two more images. So apologies, listeners. Either of our Discord's pings. It's literally me sending more images through.
Oh yeah. I see. Hey, listeners, you're getting a live Discord discussion happening.
Live reaction. But no,
I've forgotten, of course, the one that you just sent is cool.
Yeah, I'll send the actual sculpt as well because I just think it's really cool. So we've got the Riot Girls, and then they moved on to Next Wave, which obviously is having its time in the sun because it's the newest sectorial. We saw the Sartroids. I can't remember ones.
Yeah. I think it's one of each. It's one of each. The pack is one of each. So it's the puzzler, which is just not seemingly carrying any obvious weapons, and then there's the other one that has a big gun.
Yeah,
which is the gun one, obviously.
So to describe these to your listeners, these are like stocky pandas, I guess. Or if you've played Halo, a bit like grunts in Halo, I guess. They're short and squat and wide, and in the art they've been painted sort of black and white, so it reminds me of a cute panda gone wrong. I'm quite a big fan of the more alien sculpts in Infinity. I'm sad that Toha ended up not doing as well as they should have done, in my opinion. It's nice to see. I mean, they're still sort of vaguely humanoid, right? But they're not.
But I enjoy like the symbiote stuff and the two dog ones. I can't remember the name of the unit. Karail. That had these kind of like doggy things. They were cool. It's a shame they didn't go any further.
I adored the Karails. I had actually, and they just, as a mainly tournament player, they weren't amazing. They were kind of good, but they weren't amazing. So I love those sculpts. We got the Gearhead as well, which has a really cool kind of scoot thing. So it has its like normal arms and then sort of bios. I guess it's reminiscent of
big long monkey arms. They're kind of like they're not just big arms, but they seem to be like overlong, which I like that. There's like a thread of a sort of aesthetic style in Infinity where of like overlong arms, like Dakinis have overlong arms, and so does this guy, and it's looks really good. Looks kind of a little bit creepy, but still cool.
Yeah, kind of creepy. It's definitely quite a bold art style, and I really enjoy that in the models. And it's good. It's good that it kind of feels like most of next wave is going to be covered because you've got the gearheads, you've got Sartroids, we've got the oh, what are the names? The proper names of the dinosaurs? Can't remember. I just call them the dinosaurs now.
Yeah. Black Hearts
Yeah,
and
that's
Steel
right.
Jaws.
That's right. Black Hearts and Steel Jaws, both of which we have a sculpt for because I think the Black Heart's coming now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. I think they've done a really good job with it. I do enjoy the more alien sculpts. To rate these, I would probably say yeah, solid, like 7, 8 out of 10. I like this. It's good.
Yeah, same. I was not super sold on the dinosaurs in
Yeah.
Next Wave. I know it was a huge deal for a lot of people who really love dinosaurs, but I was never a dinosaur kid growing up.
Shame on you.
Just yeah, I don't know why. Like I'm plenty nerdy like everyone else, but I just for some reason they didn't connect with me. But when they dropped, it was like everyone else's mad enthusiasm kind of turned me off a little bit. I was like,
Yeah.
let's just calm down, guys.
Yeah.
But I do really love these other Sartroids.
Yeah.
They just look super cool. Like I'm super into it. And a lot of the new models for Next Wave are like, if these had all dropped first and the dinosaurs had come like now, I probably would be on Next Wave, I think, because the models are super cool. So maybe in the future.
You're
I'll
a
find
hater.
myself there. I am a dino hater. Yeah.
Fine. I think do you know the thing that really stands out to me is I watched the entire conference. So I saw all of the Infinity stuff and the Warcrow stuff, and I'm about to say something that's going to offend a lot of Infinity people, which is that I think there is a creative approach and an enthusiasm around Warcrow that I haven't necessarily felt in Infinity for a while. Yeah, okay, send me loads of angry comments, that's fine. But I think when I look at the Next Wave stuff, I can kind of see that actually, I think CB have had a lot of fun working on this sectorial. It was sort of a passion project. Wasn't there a rumor in Austria that this was like a passion project for Onyx, and then it became so big and so involved they actually decided to release it as a new sectorial? I think that's
I didn't know that.
rumor that, like, on the grapevine.
I do remember Bostria saying like, "Oh, Onyx is coming next," or he heavily implied it, and then of course Next Wave arrived. So yeah, that probably checks out because there's a lot of these alien-y looking things which could easily be reimagined as an Onyx unit.
Yeah, and remember the whole point of Combined Army, right? Is it's the Combined Army, and we're seeing all of these sort of weird, like half organic, half technological creatures and things like that. So it's very combined. It feels imaginative. It feels kind of fresh and fun. And when the previous kind of Warcrow releases, I've really felt that in Warcrow and not so much in Infinity. But watching this seminar, I felt differently. That's really positive for me. Just felt that energy,
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the good thing about that is, Next Wave is a new faction, and I guess the Warcrow is all new stuff. Like every time they release a faction, it's a new faction, and you must, as a creator, as an artist, you're working on something new for every single time you do something for Warcrow.
Right.
Whereas you're not really doing that for Infinity.
Yeah.
And I think we talk often about old factions and factions that are getting new models, factions that are getting re-release models and stuff like that. And there's a lot of perhaps you could even go so far, maybe offending again. There's maybe too much sort of fan service from the Infinity side. If you've got these old players, people in like myself in their 40s or even 50s who were playing Infinity 20 years ago and love getting their Caledonia back, for example.
Right.
And that's cool and it serves them, but it's definitely not creatively doing anything for the people at Corvus Belli. It's just, they're just reworking old stuff. And there's a lot of those reinterpretations of old models, which are really cool and exciting and people love that. But with the best will in the world, I don't think as an artist, as a 3D renderer or a sculptor, you're going to be like, okay, remake this model that was
Yeah.
from before. Oh, that's cool. I can do that. Or create an entire new thing. Like, of
Yes.
course, you're going to want to create the entire new thing.
Yeah. With like, new law, sort of expanded boundaries and what you're allowed to create is far more
Yeah.
exciting to me personally than if you said, "Can you sculpt the 14th alguacil?" I'd say,
Yeah.
"Well, I can." And yeah, that's why I think for the next wave, it feels fresh, it feels fun, and I really appreciate that.
Same.
So I guess to lower the tone and go back to that, we've got a resculpt of Thamaris.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Necessary.
Yeah. What's we've got? Okay, so interesting stuff. We've got two new models, entirely fresh. So we've got first of all this dog warrior, like a
Yeah.
half Varangian, half dog warrior sculpt coming. I can't pronounce that name. It's
No,
probably Welsh. Yon. It's
I
probably
guess.
it's IN. Yon. Double N. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you have the list of
Or
factions there? Is it
Johan,
something like
maybe? Johan, maybe?
it could be Owen. I
Or
look.
Owen. It could be
I
Owen
don't
if
know.
we're going with the Welsh. Yeah.
I don't
Or I expect.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not relevant at the moment. I'm sure we'll find
No.
out.
I'm sure we'll
Um,
find out. Someone will say it, or we'll just all say it wrong.
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. In the
So I
greatest
think it
traditions of
was,
Infinity, just say it wrong.
yeah, just say it wrong. Um,
Yeah.
Coming to surprisingly Toha, but
Yeah.
completely out of the field. Not sure why. Toha, I
Yeah.
think it was Cosmoflot, and then we've got O12 and Star Marder, I believe. I don't know if there
Yeah.
was a fifth
And
one. White Company.
their
White Company.
company. Yeah, company. Yeah.
Um, the dossier, I can't remember what it shows, but I think it shows like grenades, heavy pistol, chain rifle. I'm thinking it's probably going to be like similar to McMurrough, if I had to guess. Like looking at
Yeah.
grenades, dog warrior thing. It's cool. It's a really cool concept. Any guess at
He's kind
size? Are you
of,
thinking S5, S6? To know?
I guess S5. I mean, I can't imagine him be bigger than McMurrough. But I
No.
think what's interesting about him is he's obviously got this samurai JSA kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
He's obviously has a katana or whatever the name of the sword is. I guess it's probably a bit big for that, but and like the armor, shoulder pads and stuff, he's got a little bit of that only Waban kind of energy going on with his armor,
Yeah.
which I think is interesting. But then he's also explicitly a Varangian, and he's like an NA2. So and he's in, he's not like he's in JSA, so he's not completely aligned there at all.
No.
So an interesting addition, and I'm really curious to see how the profile turns out because he's in Toha, which I have and I will play, but also just like where he fits into the story. Like why is this seemingly random dog warrior come up in why has he been added? That'd be interesting to find out.
It will be really interesting to find out. I think he's coming with AP and T2 as well, which is quite potent weaponry.
I'll say,
I guess because he's a Varangian, I would guess he's probably has better martial McMurrough. So maybe we're looking at him that's CC like McMurrough's like 23. He'll probably be like higher, better martial arts, stuff like that. I'm just guessing. I'm looking at I'm literally just looking at Butcher. McMurrough's S6, so yeah, he'll be S6, so that's fine. Because I was talking to someone the other day, I can't remember, someone on the Discord saying, we don't S5 and S6 and outside of tags anymore. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, S5, I feel like I remember somebody again on a Discord we're talking about S5 models and how there's relatively few of those, but then the ones that do exist are now in plastic. So I wonder if there would have been a lull period when they were like, we can't really afford to make S5s anymore in metal.
Yeah.
But before we get ready with the plastic, we can't release them. We're too expensive. So there's maybe a bit of a gap, if you like, in the flow of S5 and S6 models.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, are you speculating that this could be one of the first release plastic models? Maybe.
I would say 100%. I think certainly the dog warrior, the wolf bit, 100%. I can't imagine it would be anything other than plastic. It might even be unicool. and then I would imagine the S2 element will remain metal, but you never know. I mean,
Yeah,
it's perfectly reasonable to make it in plastic if they can.
that would be a really interesting choice because I know they're testing the plastic with one of the ITS winner pack models.
Oh
You
yeah,
know how was it the IR that came in plastic, the
it
Unicorn?
did. Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I think they're still going with that and testing them. So like you could well be right. You know, we could be seeing an S6 in Unicorn or something, which would be
yeah,
really interesting. Um, so yeah, that's cool. I think it's a cool character. People love this kind of stuff, right? I personally
yeah,
JSA doesn't do it for me. He's not in JSA, but it's like a sort of samurai close combat-y feel. It's not my thing, but
yeah,
it's cool. It's a good model. Everyone loves their war bands as well, so there you go.
yeah. Yeah, and
Looking,
especially adding into the factions, probably Cosmoflot didn't necessarily need another dog wolf thing.
no,
O12, 100% will love it. I think Star Marder will love it. White Coat,
yeah,
definitely. And also Toha, like they are quite a slow faction as a rule.
yeah,
And so having something fast and tough that can just run across, throw some smoke down
yeah,
and go to town for them will be a big boost as well, I think.
yeah. Some people were saying they're surprised it's not coming to Caledonia. I can kind of see that, but we don't know the lore, do we? We don't know the
Um,
background for this guy, so I guess it kind of depends. And also, I would say I'm not making any fans in this podcast. I'm so sorry. Do Caledonia really need it? I don't know. Doesn't the whole faction do?
no.
I,
Yeah,
I'm,
exactly. I
I'm
think, yeah,
being a bit
exactly.
more.
You've got, yeah, I think you're, no, I think you're right. I know, I'm sure there's plenty of Caledonia players who are like, we should have all of the dogs,
Yeah,
especially when they've got like sort of Celtic names. But
yeah,
I think when the listeners out there see the image, he's so apart from being a wolf, he's so aesthetically different from
yes,
anything in Caledonia. I don't think
yeah.
you couldn't make the argument, certainly from that perspective, that he belongs there. Definitely not.
Not aesthetically, no, no. But God, yeah, people are going to hate me after this episode, I think. But there we go. Um, then okay, the last model to talk about before we do the really big stuff, I think is Miranda. So we're getting a
Yeah,
model for Miranda.
I love this model. Like I'm not usually one for short models
Yeah,
because I get annoyed about having to constantly replace them with a silhouette marker. But this one is just cool. Like I will probably get this model just to paint it and have it. Like I already have a Miranda model.
yeah.
I don't use the one that's on sale. I have there was an RPG game release, the Hack Islam HVT model, the
Oh yeah, yeah.
woman,
I know.
but she has a
Yeah,
sword and a pistol. I use that because she also fits in with odalisks and stuff. So I was like, that's kind of cool. But I will probably buy this model and eventually use it because it's just fun and at the very least is a really good HVT.
yeah. Absolutely. So, if people are listening and aren't familiar with Miranda, Miranda's a profile in N5 that's really come up. She's quite become quite popular. So basically she's a bounty hunter. I can't remember all of the factions. I know she's in OSS, so
Yeah,
I can, that's makes sense. But she's a good source of EM, so she's very, very good against like heavy infantry and tags and stuff like that. And I believe she can be fire teamed in some factions. I'm sort
she
of half.
can.
Yeah.
She's in OSS as a bounty hunter, so she goes in bounty hunter fire teams.
Right.
Um, she also is in Dashat and goes in
Okay.
Odalisk fire teams there.
Cool. Yeah. Right.
And I think she's in a couple of other NE2s
Yeah.
and
So
maybe one or two other mainline factions. I can't quite remember.
So fire teamable. That's a verb now. EM is really strong. Good character, good concept, and so the model it kind of is a bit odd, but it's kind of oozing style. She's sitting on a box. She's got like an umbrella, and she's drinking tea or something.
I think it's
I
her
really
sword. I think it's her sword
is it
that
a
she's
sword
leaning
or an
on.
umbrella? It's hard to. Yeah, it's probably a sword. I want to think it's an umbrella because I'm British.
I think
Um,
umbrella is good. I would actually
yeah,
probably prefer an umbrella.
paint it as an umbrella, please. It's probably a sword, isn't it? God, I'm
Yeah.
stupid sometimes. But there she is, sitting on a box drinking tea. I think it's a really cool concept. I think some people might feel that she fits more as an HVT than like a
Yeah.
combat model, but I just think it's imaginative, it's different, it's interesting.
Yeah, completely. And I love, this is one of the things that I love about Corvus Belli, and I hope they never change in this regard, which is they do amazing they do HVTs. HVTs are a thing that exist, right, in the game, and they make them, and they
Yeah.
make all of these civilians, and they make characters like this, a bit like with there's a special edition version of Usha McNeil, and
Yeah.
she's also sitting on a box, like posing, not doing anything combat oriented. And I
Yeah.
really love that. Like, I love, it's quite a bold move in a
Yeah.
war game industry to do that. And it's kind of, I feel like it's almost the opposite of what, like, talking about Games Workshops, opposite of what they do, where
Yeah.
they, of course, they're very much a kind of model business. You know, they make these huge, enormous models that are really just painting objects and you know, something to sit on a shelf. But they're always like in these ludicrous kind of heroic poses, leaping off a
Yeah.
rock and arms in the air, and you know, with a massive like base and stuff like that, which is fine if you like that, but it was not something for me. It was one of the things that drove me away from Games Workshop
That's
quite a few
interesting.
years ago. I was just like, I want my game pieces to be game pieces. And
Right.
what CB do so brilliantly is they make these characters that they fit on their little base. Like, she fits on an
Yeah.
S2, but it's still just dripping with character.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be someone pointing a gun somewhere. Like, they do that really, really well. And it was something
Yeah.
I always loved when, you know, back in the day when I started with miniatures, when I was a child, a small child, you know, those single sort of blisters of orcs and ogres and space marines
Mm.
and this, that, and the other. What I loved, what got me into miniatures was the character that you could pack into into a little
Yes.
package like that. And
Yeah.
this is just a perfect example of that. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think we're probably going to end up having a discussion in a few minutes about sort of character and aesthetics and things when we talk about the new box, because I
Sure.
feel that is really important to the hobby, gaining interest. And the thing you've kind of you've hit upon one of the discussions that we have in Infinity about, you know, how many tactical rocks can we really have, because there are only so many combat poses you can do, right? You've got the hacking hand, you've got the you know, the long range
Yeah.
weaponry, you've got the salute, you've got all sorts of other things, and then every now and again CB will drop a miniature that I think is purposefully very different, and it's not to everyone's taste, but I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of part of the kind of, if you can perhaps coin a phrase, the kind of meta aesthetic of Infinity.
Yes. Yeah,
If you were
I
to,
agree.
like, at a high level per point, look down from a bird's eye view on Games Workshop and on Corvus Belli, and look the kinds of models they do. Not look at any individual one, but you're just looking at the sort of vague sense that you get.
Yeah.
What Infinity is doing is that kind of thing that really
Yeah.
differentiates it. I mean, there's also a lot of other aesthetic questions in terms of detail, but when we're talking about the kind of silhouettes and the overall sort of energy of a group of models together, Infinity has got those kind of models is what's giving it its very specific
Mm.
feel, I think.
Yeah, I think you look at the model for Miranda, and it kind of says Shalon, you know, kind of, I don't really care. I'm drinking my tea. I'm sitting on this box. It tells you something about this character, which you don't get from like two-hand aiming gun, you know, like
No.
a Mukhtar or something.
Yeah. And I
Well,
think
it's
it
Mukhtar.
also, yeah, it also, I think, tells you something about the universe. Like,
Right.
the you have a model and a character in a sort of a sexy business suit, with a sword, and her sort of, I think she's probably got a pistol on her like box that she's sitting on
Yeah.
drinking tea. When you think about the vibe of the universe compared to something like Warhammer 40,000, where, you know, it's the grim darkness of the far future, it's eternal war, and as a consequence, every base has rubble on it.
Yeah.
every piece of armor has a dent in it. You know,
Yeah.
she's so clean and pristine, and that's saying something about the Infinity Universe, that it's not a world of constant conflict. It's a world that you could live in. Like, you know, technological stuff aside, and the fact it's fictional, for me, I find I connect with it a lot more easily, because it's like, yeah, these characters exist in a world that feels more real
Yeah.
than the sort of grim darkness of the far future.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It tells you something about us, which I really appreciate. So we've
Yeah.
got 3 bigger reveals. So we have, and I'll let you pick which one we go talk about first. So we've got a confirmed campaign. Not much was said about. It's just got the logos for the people involved. So that's us, Metachemistry, Loss of Lieutenant, and Rob Shep or Rob Cantrell, depending on if you go YouTube name or real name. So that was the first thing. That's a big announcement. I think people were really happy to hear that there's some kind of campaign coming. Obviously, at this early stage, no details. It was just a picture of the logo and, you know, saying there's a campaign.
Yeah. Obviously, we can't talk about.
Yeah.
We are involved.
Yeah.
We don't know much.
Yeah.
Um, it's very hush hush. I mean, obviously, they don't want anything to leak.
Nope.
So we have a small amount of information, of course, which we're not able to share with you, the dear listeners. But be assured, we're doing our little bit. We're doing it as well as we possibly can. We're working really hard, and we're really excited to be involved. And it should be good. It should be good.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's confirmed that a campaign is coming. So that was the first thing. We've got a re-release of Caledonia that we can talk about, including, funnily enough, the Ushia sculpt you just referred to a couple of minutes ago, which is a really cool sculpt. And then the biggest news is, of course, the new 2-player box, which is confirmed to be Nomads versus Aleph. I believe verbally they said Aleph operations, so I think confirmed OSS, and there's a massive picture of an Asura, so it's going to be OSS. The Nomads, a little bit hazier. I think it's confirmed Corregidor. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. I mean, just looking at the picture, it is that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So I guess we've got those things to cover. I mean, in terms of the campaign, there really isn't much to say. It's coming. It's coming in May. That's, you know, just reading off the slide. We're not obviously allowed to give anything away at this point, but you know, get excited. We've got a campaign coming. Cool. You know, it's probably going to involve lots of people taking part and some exciting. You know, that's probably all we can say.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's worth pointing out, we mentioned this already with regards to the books and audiobooks and stuff like that, is this that they're doing is, again, it's taking, it's not exactly their core business, right? It's not making models. It's play. So, you know, it's more closely related. But the way they've reached out to us, and they're reaching out to other creators in the sort of space around the game, you can see they're trying to do something different. They're trying to expand. They're trying to do something interesting and engaging that's going to capture more attention and be more fun for everyone involved. And so I think from our perspective, of course, we're involved, so we are biased, and it's cool to be involved. But I think from an outside perspective, I would hope that everyone also looks upon this as like, this is cool. This is CB trying something new, trying something different and exciting, and trying to make the Infinity Universe bigger and better for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. We've done campaigns before. I don't being kind of not outsourced is the wrong word, that, but I don't this level of community involvement for. And I think that is new, and that is fun, and it gives us all an opportunity to get really involved with the lore and to use our imaginations and to really take part in the. That is exciting.
Yeah, I was on the Discord. There's a secret Hack Islam Discord for when there is a global campaign, and I was just doing my usual scanning through all of my Discord things to see if there's anything worth talking about, and that one lit up because the people who are in that love campaign play. They love the story. They want to get involved, and it's not a server that's usually very active. So it was like,
Yeah.
yes, this is definitely pushing a button for people that rarely gets pushed.
Yes.
And I hope they do more of this kind of thing. If the campaign play, the more narrative based play, it's definitely an area that I think a big expansion for them if they can get into it. So it should be good.
Yeah, and to get people excited, if you're a newer player and you haven't taken part in this kind of thing before, historically, so again, we can't give anything away, but historically, things that happen in these campaigns, they have sometimes made it into the official lore. I'm thinking back to, oh God. So we've had ITS seasons that have determined like which faction certain units go to, and then I think when I was reading that secret Hackerslam Discord, we in the last campaign did Hackerslam make an alliance with like Aleph or something, and that got written into.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact details of it, but it was. I mean, yeah, if you pick up, I guess it's the new lore book, the N5 lore book.
Yeah,
There is a reference to the Shattergrounds campaign, which was the last one that happened a couple of years ago, and yeah, it references stuff that we did, like decisions
yeah,
that we collectively made as Hackers
yeah,
Land players. Gets into the book, so that's something also to look forward to. I think if you, as like you say, Ollie, if you're new into the game, uh, getting involved with this will be your opportunity to really directly affect what happens.
yeah. It's really, really exciting, and I will say delightfully controversial sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
if any new players who ever suffered under the baleful pitcher rain that comes from Bit and Kiss,
yeah,
can there is one person you can blame for that, which is
there
a
is.
dude, it's a good guy in Spain who won the ITS seasoning, got to decide where Bit and Kiss would go in the game
Yeah,
and chose combined army.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's
in a parallel universe, Bit and Kiss could be in Pano or something,
yeah. Well, they got blockers, so hey, they made up for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
they're doing okay.
they're doing all right. So that's the campaign news. It's going to be, and I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, rest assured, like we're writing stuff, we're working on stuff. I think it's going to be cool. Um,
Yeah.
so let's do. So we've got two big bits of news. We've got the Caledonia re-release. That's really exciting. I think we should start that, and then finally we've got the last big thing, which is the box.
Yeah.
In terms of Caledonia, this is, I think, a really reassuration of a pattern because CB did the pre-orders. It made to order for what was the last one? Sorry, I can't remember. Was it Shock Army?
Yeah, Shock Army. It was.
It
It was
was
quite
Shock
recently.
Army. Yeah, it was Shock Army recently. And look, we've had some new, we've had some not new re-release models, and people do often say it's a shame I can't get the models. And I think CB going back and reprinting this stuff and packaging it up as they have is going to be really exciting for a lot of people that might love Caledonia or in the future, I'm speculating here, love Varuna, love NCA, whatever, but they just can't get hold of it. Hopefully, if this trend continues, this is going to be a great opportunity for everyone, I think.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, they also did the Tohar came out again
Oh, they
a
did,
couple of
yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's a great sort of service, if you like, to the community. It's something that I've been bemused by, in a sense, by since getting into the Infinity sort of scene, is how many models are out of production and how many
Yes.
people love those models and have generated a really really expensive secondhand market
Yeah, absolutely.
for limited edition single pieces or whole armies. And
Yeah.
I mean, I feel foul of that. I remember when I first got in at the start of N4, and I went out and found the old Steel Phalanx army. I went out and found Tohar and Shock Army and NCA
Yeah.
because I have a particular problem with like collecting rare
Yeah.
stuff, but nonetheless, like I wanted to also play those factions, and it always felt like CB is just leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
And I understand they have to move on, they have to do new things, but this just gives them an opportunity, one, to make a bit more money off something that
Yeah.
they've already like put investment into, and they get to serve their community in a way that let someone buy a product at a reasonable price instead of
Yes.
buying a single miniature that's like £50 or whatever your
Yeah.
local currency is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a
So
really good idea.
it benefits us obviously as people that want to play the faction, because it obviously allows those models at lower prices, and it benefits them because they make money on it. So to describe the Caledonia release, I'm looking at a very fuzzy picture. Again, apologies that the official YouTube video hasn't come out, but I think there are two boxes. There's an alpha pack and a beta pack. I would guess one of them has like lots of the S2s, and the beta probably has like maybe or something, S6 or something like that in
Yeah,
it.
I've got a picture here, and it's they're both roughly the same size in terms of model volume. They're almost all of them are S2, but
Right.
there's a God, not a Caledonian. What's the dog warrior? Like a specific.
Oh,
He's
hang
wearing
on.
a kilt and he has two miniature chain rifles.
No, that's Mora, isn't it?
Well, there's a McMurray. The old
I
McMurray as
think.
well has a miniature chain rifle, but he only has one, and he's got like
Oh, I
short hair.
see. I don't know.
There's a Yeah,
Cameronian? I think it's a
Cameronian. That's it. Yes,
Cameronian.
Cameronian. Yes, there's a Cameronian in one box with a load of S2 with like
Yeah.
um, old William Wallace, and
Cool.
a few other bits, and then the other one has McMurray with a few of
Yeah.
the very very rare and very sought after pieces in it.
Yeah, it's a really good pack, and I think it's a really good decision. And the big news here is if you pre-order both boxes, you get the limited edition Ushia, which was only available in Defiance.
Yeah, Defiance. Yeah,
I think so.
in one of the
That's
Defiance
quite important.
expansion packs as well. So
Yeah, right.
quite rare indeed. Yeah.
So this is a model that basically no one was able to get their hands on, and I think it's reassuring to know that CB are kind of listening. They're going to give us other opportunities to pick up those cool sculpts.
Yeah.
So you've got that, and then you've also got a real blast from the past. You've got Armand Lemouet, who I don't think's had a sculpt in years.
No, not for a really long time.
No,
Not since this model. I think it's only that, which is the limited
Yeah.
one where he's holding a pistol, and then there was the standard release with a sniper rifle, but that's been out
Yeah.
of production for years.
A very long time. Yeah, so this is a real sort of tour de force of like old rare miniatures. So I would snap this up in an instant if I wanted, if I was big into Ariadne, or if I just wanted those exclusive kind of Ushia stuff. It's a great pack.
Yeah.
I think really,
Yeah.
really good.
And there's what I love. You've got I think they're the volunteers. There was this era of Corvus Belli before my time in N3 where they did a few like starter packs of newly sculpted stuff, which then quite quickly went out of production. Which Shock Army was one, and I think Caledonia had a similar situation where there's this great set of volunteers where the women have all got tartan trousers on and the men have got kilts, and they're just really good. So referring back to my other like diatribe about characterful small models, they're all just got really good feel and a good vibe to them, and I would pick up that box just for those ones because they're just really fun, really good models.
Yeah. I like the blast from the past models. I think they're really cool.
Yeah,
it's a different era. So Caledonia players, Ariadne players, there's a lot to be excited about there. And even if you're not, I think it's a really good opportunity to pick up some great sculpts. So yeah, good move, Corvus Belli.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, then I guess it's the biggest news of the night, the thing that everyone's been waiting for.
the thing I've been waiting for.
Yeah, the new 2-player box. So that was very briefly revealed. It kind of had some art shots of various units. So we've seen an Asura, and we've seen something. Not entirely sure. If I had to guess, maybe it's an Evader or Evaders in Corregidor. I think so. God, I should know that.
Yeah.
That's bad. Yeah, and
I think it might be something new because the Evader I mean, it's probably 3 years ago now when they came out with Crimson Stone. It might be 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But the sculpt for Evader is pretty new, and this looks a bit different from that.
It's
it's
kind of got
something
like
else, I think.
glowing gauntlets. It's in the traditional Corregidor sort of orangey armor, so it's immediately obvious like this is a Corregidor troop. It just looks a little bit different, and the Asura is the classic Asura in that very sleek, like sort of skin tight body armor type feel. I loved, and the name for the pack is Operation Mazebreaker. In terms of extra information, just to give you all the deets. So for the first time, Corvus Belli, not for the first time here, Corvus Belli are coming to UK Games Expo. They've done that for a number of years. That's been really cool. But the box is going to go on pre-order then. So I don't think they've timed any big releases with UK Games Expo before.
No, I don't think so.
But so just to give details for those of you in the US or in other countries, UK Games Expo generally is the end of May. So I would say, what's that? Pre-orders in 8 weeks? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
2, 3, 4. I'm just counting. Yeah, about that. So we'll probably see it mid-end May, I would say. Cool. So it's not too long, really.
No.
So how are we feeling? I guess S versus Corregidor. We're kind of half guessing, half no.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm excited. Aforementioned OSS main. The Asura has. When I first started playing the faction, the Asura was that first model that I used, having come from Vanilla Hack Islam and Capu Kalki, where I felt powerful as a player on the table. Like it was like, this model does everything. It does everything really well, pretty much. This was in like mid late N4. And it was like, wow, this is what Infinity can be like. This is what people talk about when they talk about like, I ran across the table and I killed everything on the first turn. I didn't do that, but I was doing a lot of good things. And so the Asura has a special place in my heart. It has taken a bit of a hit, not directly because the profile is still the same, but there's been other stuff that has risen around it in terms of both hacking and in terms of both shooting and combat and stuff. So I'm interested to see what happens with that profile. The artwork is the Asura with a cool new trim. The current Asura sculpt has long hair. This one has a short, choppy one. And she's got a Spitfire, which was always a profile that kind of people had a love-hate, mostly hate relationship with. Because though I personally thought it was pretty good. You know, it's just a Spitfire, so it doesn't have AP. It doesn't have any kind of like extra oomph to it to make it a threat to literally any target. And she also has a big sword coming out of her arm, which is interesting. So
wrist blade thing.
Yeah, it's quite a lot too long for it to fit inside her arm, I think. So I don't know quite how they would fluff that, but anyway, it looks pretty cool. I'm not super sold on the shoulder pads, I must say.
They're a bit weird.
They are a bit. They seem a bit bulky for what is supposed to be a very sleek unit. But I'm here for it. I'm not gonna knock it. I love the Asura as a unit, and the opportunity to get a new one and hopefully a bunch of new other stuff is very exciting. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm all for Asura as both a sculpt. I kind of like it as a profile. I don't love it as a profile. Historically, so not to give anything away, but obviously we know that with the release of boxes, things have been looked at. Some profiles have been entirely new or reworked, things like that. So if we think back to, God, I'm really searching my memory now. Well, if we think back to the box with Assassins, you know, we saw a lot of reworked units there. The Shujay comes to mind, which has become a terror in N5. We had TAC in a box, which obviously new faction, loads new profiles, loads of new stuff. So I don't know what's going to happen with OSS. Well, actually, I'm teasing you. I know exactly what's going to happen with OSS. Having been playing it for a little while, I know exactly what's going to happen.
Shame on you. Shame on you. You should be leaking everything to our loyal listeners and me, specifically me.
But what I would say is, you know, when these 2-player boxes come out, they're usually they're big projects, right? These factions, they're getting new sculpts, they're getting new artwork, and I would look forward to this. That's all I'm going to say. Leak anything, but I would say this is it's a bigger release rather than a smaller release, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So in terms of just commenting on the Asura, like it's got that kind of very core sort of cyberpunk trope styling with the like bob cut kind of haircut thing and the like wrist blade and stuff. So this is really core Infinity for me
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, same. It's what you get into Infinity for, right? I mean, referring back to the Miranda model, she obviously
Yeah,
is not an Asura, but she sits in that same kind of category. There's the kind of femme fatale kind of energy going on, but it's also that kind of near future, idealized kind of, it's the future. It's a kind of an optimistic future, I would say. I know that's, if you read
right.
the fluff, it's not entirely like that. Of course, it's still a war game, but it's a vision of the future, which is like, the future exists. It's advanced. It's better in a lot of ways than the world we have. It's not like,
Yeah,
again, sorry to refer to 40K, where it's like everything's miserable and
yeah,
corpse starch and all that. It's like, and that's what the Asura really communicates. That it's like, this is a robot that looks just like a human. It's not like clanking around, but it's also super tough, super fast, super like
yeah.
intelligent. Everything about that kind of like minimalist, high-end, glossy kind of vibe, of the sort of cyberpunk thing. That's really
Yes.
what it's communicating to you.
Yeah, I think I love this two-player box aesthetically and for theme. So I'm gonna talk about my sort of personal thoughts about design here.
Okay.
I'm not gonna leak anything, but what I'm gonna talk about is like how I think OSS and how I think about Corregidor, basically.
Okay.
I sent you a couple of notes before the show, but what I was thinking was, for a long time, I think there have been grumbles around the homogenization of power armor, so how it's all sort of, it can blur,
Yeah.
ISS was re-released and I think they removed those Yujing kind of braids from a lot of the models, which
Yeah.
is a lot of people considered like quite a core feature of the Yujing power armor. Um,
Yeah.
there's always been the joke that all Pano heavy infantry look the same except for the cape or the helmet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if I was new to, I'm not obviously. If I was, could I obviously tell the difference between like an evader and a janissary and a brigader and stuff? No, I probably couldn't, honestly.
Yeah.
It's
That's fair.
very similar aesthetic, but I think that's a mistake. There are lots of ways to do power armor that feel different, and I think Corregidor versus OSS really demonstrates this. Like the Asura and OSS, to me, aesthetically, like it should. So looking at OSS, it should be very clean. It should be very modern. It should be quite sleek, quite fast. So it's kind of bringing up, I don't know, like memories of like Terminator from the 90s and things like that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas Corregidor, for me, like the law that is, this is a working ship. They do a lot of like manual labor. There's a lot of industrial stuff. So I think the feel there should be like more sort of stripped back, more dirty, more oily, and just feel a bit more maybe like patched together. Like,
Sure.
does that sort of make sense?
Absolutely. I think,
Yeah,
I mean, you're really right. I think this speaks interestingly also. I know we stay on aesthetic, but just a slight detour to like the lore. And if you
right.
read the lore about Corregidor and about Aleph, and you see some of the artwork, some of the key art pieces, it really communicates it to you in a really good way. Like you get it instantly. You don't have to sort of think too hard about it. But you're right about the models. That's not always the case. Like the
Yeah,
Corregidor models are cool. They have a style, but I
yeah,
agree with you. I would say it's not distinct enough from a lot of the other stuff to really say yes. It's not selling me the fiction quite as well as it
right.
could do.
Exactly. But I think there is an opportunity in this box to really have two factions that, you know, probably going to be a heavy infantry on the Corregidor side tend to balance the boxes,
Yeah.
but I think this is a really good opportunity to have completely different aesthetics between the two. Like, what should a Corregidor REM look like versus an OSS REM? Well, I think there's lots of scope to make them look completely differently.
Yeah.
One of these things should
that's
be
a really good point.
quite small, probably quite. It's almost like, I don't know, like high tech professional versus low tech kind of cobbled together semi professional thing.
Yeah.
So I just hope Corvus Belli like grab this and they think, because how do we make these two factions aesthetically different? Because in some of the mechanical details, they can be quite similar, right? Nomads is a hacking faction. ALF should really, in reality, be a hacking faction. I know it's a little bit weak at hacking right now, but if it ought to be good at hacking, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah.
There are lots of things you could say. Oh, it's very similar. And I think my challenge to CB and the opportunity here is to say, well, how do we take these factions that might have similar kind of units, similar kind of styles, and make them actually very different and feel different on the board and look different as models?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. It's a kind of it is interesting with these two factions specifically because, as you say, they have similar strengths, but they gain those strengths through very different means. And I think it's like it's the difference between it's this sort of like all powerful AI with all the highest possible high tech stuff, working with materials unavailable to quote unquote normal people or normal industry, versus these sort of space unionists who are, they work with what they've got, but they work with their human ingenuity in that space of like hacking and high tech, weaponry and whatnot. Like they still have to be able to fight on the same level, but they just come at it from a very, very different perspective. And of course, as you say, there's an opportunity there to say these are two, they live in the same world, they have the same or very similar capabilities, but they're coming from completely different places, and we can tell that story through the models that we make. And in theory, in an ideal world, you wouldn't need any lore or any like artwork. You could look only at the models and say, this is this and that is that, and I know exactly what they're supposed to be just from looking at them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that in the past is where Infinity has been weak in some ways. But I would hope moving forwards, this is a real opportunity for it to be strong on that. For me, OSS is about remotes, right? That's just my sort of judgment on the faction. It's about remotes. It's about hacking. It's about the sort of projection of like overwhelming power in a sort of similar wheel park to Pano. And it's supposed to be very clean. These are just my personal thoughts on the faction, the kind of things that I would like to see in them. Whereas
I think there's an
Corregidor,
interesting like energy around like Aleph. If I'm contrasting to encapsulate Aleph and Corregidor in one little word or phrase, I would say Aleph is sort of like effortless power, right? They're robots, so they literally don't make effort in the way people do. But they're kind of, the whole energy of them is like they are impassive faces all the time. They don't have emotions. Everything is effortless and smooth. Whereas Corregidor is a lot more gritty. It's like, they make a lot of effort and they care a lot. And it's all about like the passion of Corregidor, which I think that contrast is really strong and really, really is a good fit for them together as an oppositional sort of box.
Right. So with Corregidor, I kind of want to see like, these dudes in armor that are struggling, and they're, obviously like maybe they've repurposed stuff, and there's sort of weird and wonderful like new inventions coming out, and things that are imaginative and seem a bit cobbled together on the other side of the box. That could be, quite interesting as well. Whereas, as you said, I think the ALF side is more like effortless, like War Machine. Like this is purposeful, and the Corregidor stuff is less designed for that purpose. Anyway, that's how I think about the factions and the kind of stuff that I've been thinking about as I've looked at it, and just tried to tell a story like through this box.
Yeah, I'm
But
excited.
Yeah, I'm not in any position to like actually leak anything about like profiles, units, whatever. Like, what's actually telling you like this is how I see Corregidor and this is how I see OSS.
Yeah, which is also you're only one tester as well, so the way you see it doesn't necessarily correlate with what will come out at the end.
No, not at all. No,
So, like,
not in the slightest.
you dear listeners out there, you can perhaps infer, you can say, well, that's good that someone thinks that way, or bad that someone thinks that way, but whatever comes out at the end may or may not correlate with what Olli thinks.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like, I've read the RPG fluff books, I've read Human Sphere, I've looked at all of this stuff. This is publicly available stuff, and I thought, oh, okay, this is what a Corregidor force feels like to me. This is what an OSS force feels like to me, but I'm not going to tell you anything about the actual units and profiles. So, guys, you got to wait. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. And we should wait. It's the waiting is what makes it fun in the end.
Yeah.
Build the excitement.
Yeah, but honestly, I would say if you want to kind of start making guesses, we all know that Infinity is usually from theme. It is usually very strong on fluff. So go out and like read the lore for the units and check PG books if they're still available. And they will sort of guide you and say, okay, like this is how I think it's going to function. Make guesses based on that, because we're quite tied to, or at least I'm very tied to the background. You're not going to see an Asurador, right? It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. That's not what the faction does, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. So read that stuff, and it will give you clues.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think have we covered everything now?
I think we've covered everything.
No more news.
Yeah. I mean, there is Warcrow news, but I don't play Warcrow. I don't know, so I can't comment on that.
No, I also don't play Warcrow. I have looked across it. I've been across all of the dwarf releases, and yeah, I think it's cool. But this is an Infinity podcast. It's not a general gamers podcast. So if for you guys out there, in fact, in our previous episode, we had Trent. Trent, if you're listening, now's the time, man. Get that Warcrow podcast going. And yeah, it'll be cool. And I think it's a cool game. Go and check it out if you like it. There's loads of information about it online, and there will be by the end of today when we're recording. There'll be loads more. So enjoy that, but enjoy Infinity while you're here with us.
Yeah, enjoy Infinity for now. And just just a disclaimer from me to end. Obviously, everything I've talked about is like my opinions on stuff. I'm not giving away things. Everything I've talked about in terms of lore and fluff, like you now of Human Sphere and things like that. So none of this is a secret. Oh, sorry, I'm getting pinged. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, and the thing about the Onyx rework, that was from Bostia as well. So just once listening, like I haven't given anything away that you shouldn't know.
Yes, don't trust his lies.
Yeah, don't trust him. Yeah.
We love you, Carlos.
Yeah, with all of Corvus Belli. I think this is an opportunity for them to do a really good job. I think I've had some frustrations. It's been a little while since we saw updates in October, but this is good stuff. Worth being excited about.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I think all we need to say is thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to this emergency news podcast.
Yeah.
We will be back with another podcast in the future.
Mm-hmm.
New videos every time we decide to do one.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for tuning in. My name is Thomas, and this is the Whip 12 podcast.
See you.